Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Houston Cinema Arts Festival, the 2020 festival, and the post-screening Q&A for one of these days. I hope you are as moved and impressed with this film as I am. And my name is Jessica Green. I'm the artistic director of the festival. And yeah, this movie, wow, it's incredible. And we're so excited. We have the director of this film, Günther Bastian, and various cast members that we are going to be introducing and asking some questions of. So we're going to get this going without further ado, not stand on ceremony, and get things going with the director, Günther Bastian, who is with us, who made this beautiful film. So Günther, hello, and just want to ask you a couple of questions to start. So the first question is, you are, both in Texas, in Austin, I believe, and then you are also from and spending some time in Germany as well, and are bicultural of both of these places. And I wanted to ask you about the device that's really incredible at the beginning of the film and towards the end of the kind of Google Earth device that's used to identify location, at the beginning of the film, and I guess in about the last 15 minutes of the film, and just ask you what that was about, what you were doing there, how that might dovetail with your perspective as a filmmaker that is bicultural, that is global, that is looking at these cultures. And I would just also add in that question, feel free to talk. Your previous film was titled Houston, Go Houston, was set in Houston. And I'm just really interested in this perspective you have as a German, Texas German filmmaker. And I thought that device was pretty interesting and wondered if it connected up to your perspective at all. Yeah, that's the first question.
Well, I decided to use these Google Maps images because I was looking for something to visualize this, the urge and the longing for somebody to leave town and to wish to be somewhere else. And with this technology today, we use it for all kinds of stuff, also for work. Before we go on a location tour, we might look up some places. But, I also find myself something just, scrolling around and look, oh, how does it look there? And so I was looking for something to give Kyle, and, since he's kind of representing the whole crowd in the last chapter of the film, I wanted to give something to the people that shows this longing to leave and to start somewhere fresh, and at the same time to use it as kind of an establishing tool, especially the first one, the first Google Maps where the credits are on, to show the setting where we are, to see, okay, this is clearly southern small town, and it's not very rich. So it served kind of two different purposes. To the second question, for me as a German or a European, it's very interesting to be here. I mean, I'm still here. I was supposed to go back in April, but this didn't work out. Anyway, so I'm still here. That's great. But I am, I live here now for over 10 years on and off, but I still am kind of an outsider, and I guess I will stay an outsider, but I think I see things differently, or I observe things differently since I didn't grow up here. And the same with Houston, with the film. I'm just interested in Americana culture and what kind of things are going on here, but not only specifically to Texas or to America, but how they actually show a bigger picture that actually relates to all of us. Like, this competition took place in East Texas, but on these like 12 square meters that this competition is on, or like this little theater stage, it reflects the system that we all live in, this capitalistic system. And this was something very intriguing and interesting to me. And I find this stuff here and I love it, and it's very interesting, but although it's a Texas thing, it tells more about only Texas. It tells stuff about us people, and that's what I like, to pick stuff that's very specific to a place, but then see in a bigger picture and how it affects all of us.
And yeah, speaking of, the setting of East Texas, is that where the film was set in your mind? And where was it actually shot? Where was it actually filmed?
Yeah, I wanted definitely to be in a southern town and southeast, where it's tropical and humid, which it was. And, and so it's originally an East Texas story, but we shot in Amite, which is northwest of New Orleans,
Mhm.
and in different other small towns in Ponchatoula and Hammond, and all these little small towns northeast of New Orleans.
Yeah. So I guess all that sweat was real. All the sweating. that was really that was real deal. Wow. Yeah.
I hadn't to direct a thing. We just waited. We just let them be at the truck and kept rolling. And
yeah, well, there's definitely some interest. It's quite an interesting acting exercise, and I'm excited to ask some of the actors some questions along those lines. And then, yeah, I mean, what you just mentioned also. So, Hands on a Hard Body. How? Why? How did you come to, discover this? How did you come to make a film about it? Are you familiar with the musical? Are you familiar with the documentary? I think the musical was actually performed. One of my colleagues reminded me the musical was performed in Houston, I think by the Alley Theater. So I just, wondering about that, the origin of Hands on a Hard Body, the idea of this film. How did that come to be, Günther?
So I think it was in 2009 or 2010 that my wife told me about Hands on a Hard Body. She, in the 90s, lived in Austin, and I think in 97 the film ran for a year in the Dolby Cinema in Austin, and it was a big thing. And so she told me about the film and the competition, and I thought, oh wow, this sounds interesting. And I started researching about it, and I found these little East Texas local news bits of the suicide in 2005, and I watched the documentary, and I really liked the documentary. It's very entertaining, very funny, but it doesn't really shine a light on the exploitation, actually, on the on the thing that it is. It is using people for entertainment. Okay, yeah, you give a truck to one person, but basically the people who don't have the privilege to buy a car are being used for entertainment. And so the documentary didn't really cover this, which is fine. But this and in the news that I found online about the suicide made me wanting to make this film. And I didn't watch the musical, but I met the real Joan, like Carrie's character, for 3 days. She had moved to Midland, Texas, and I just spent 3 days with her and her mom, her old mom. So and we hung out and did video interviews and just had dinner together. And so this is how I ended up also bringing her into the film and her character.
And this is the real Joan that worked at the dealership where the real individual had committed suicide at a. And is it true that there have been no more Hands on a Hard Body contests since then?
Yes, that's true. Not in Longview, Texas. Yeah, I believe there are maybe somewhere else. I think 2 or 3 years ago there was one in Austin.
Yeah,
they had to kiss a car.
Huh.
So put their lips on the car as long as they can. I think it was only a 48 or 50-hour deal.
Yeah, I've just been, and I really just, as you know, I love the film. I think it's just so moving, and especially the choice you make around the last, kind of half hour of the film, and going back into his story and his backstory, and just the level of humanization that happens at that point is so powerful. When did you decide? And it's really unusual to structure a film that way. When did you decide to structure and have that really, impactful third act where you just really learn about this guy and his baby and his amazing wife, and and just get so much more connected to him and feel so much for him.
Well, I decided from the beginning to do this because these competitions, they play with hope. So they suggest you can win something, you can be successful, but actually what you are a person at a truck, can't afford to buy it. What Jesse's character at some point also says in the film.
Right.
So I wanted to create a feeling at the end to leave the film with, when you only see the scene, it's kind of a happy end. But since you know what's coming, it is dark and bittersweet. And also I want, during the whole competition, you see all the characters, everybody has a story, but you see basically also a bunch of yellow t-shirts. And so by going back in time and seeing Joe's character, Kyle, and his story, he is representing everybody at the truck because everybody has a story. Everybody has a reason to be there. And so I wanted to first recreate this feeling of how it feels that these hopes are just being played with, and it will be a disappointment in what way ever, but also to say, hey, these are real people. They have a life, and they are not only entertainment and a bunch of yellow shirts.
I just have to ask you, this is my last question, just speaking of, the intersection between being entertainment and needing a truck. If you've meditated at all on Dogface 208, the TikTok sensation, and I just feel like there's a connection between the themes of your film. I don't know if you followed this, TikTok video that's blown up from this guy that his truck broke down and he needed to get to work. So he rode his skateboard to work and drank some cranberry juice. And now people have kind of recreated it all over the world. And it just, there's just some synergy there in terms of, and it's just, I think that's part of the reason why it resonates so much, because it's just so basic. He just had this really basic need and just needed to get somewhere. And now he's got a truck. I think Fleetwood Mac bought him a truck because he's lip syncing the song Dreams from Fleetwood Mac. So this is a much happier ending to a person, to a story of a person that needed a truck. But I just thought of it and thought of you and your film, and I just didn't know if you were familiar with that. But I just thought you might find it interesting based on the themes you're interested in exploring in your work. So just wanted to share that. But again, thank you, Günther, for just such a soulful, incredible film. And speaking of soulful and incredible, so I'm going to move on to Carrie Preston. Ms. Preston, I am a huge fan of yours. I think you're one of the most incredible working actors. I just think all of your performances, there are so many layers. There's always all these layers to what you're doing, and it's just fascinating in every kind of role that you take on. And the layers in this performance are really amazing. And I wondered about your character, as you've done before. I think, on Claws, there's a peppiness, to it. And then there's this really kind of pathos and sensitivity under the peppiness. And I wondered how much the events of, the story and of the film weighed on you, how you kind of worked with that around the pathos, underneath your character at the beginning, not knowing what's going to transpire. And just that, I was just really fascinated about that and wanted you to just share a little bit about your process around that.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Yeah, I mean, when I first got the script and I met Bastian, we were talking about this desperation, that the film is definitely illuminating as far as like the wasteland of what the rural South, the barren wasteland of the rural South, and what it's sort of become. And also him being, like what he was saying, an outsider, making a comment on capitalism and I think an indictment of capitalism. And she is someone who is just like a lot of people in the country, particularly right now, just trying to put on a good face and meet the American dream that is no longer there, and it was I always find that when you're doing a drama, you should try to find the comedy in it. And when you're doing a comedy, you should find the drama in it. Like that's just something that I think works acting wise. And also I think for the audience as well, because it keeps them guessing, you know, so you want to play, you know, with both of those things. And this role had that, and you know, that balance was constantly shifting. And I think it was important to have a little bit of levity, you know, in the movie, because it was going to be so dark. And that's what made, I think, the script so interesting. I read it and I thought, this cannot have been written by a German. Like, how is this? It felt so American. And I grew up in Georgia, and it just felt like it was, you know, it's so articulate about, you know, the place that I come from and the types of women that are around me. And then he showed me the videos of the interviews that he had done with the woman that he based my character on. And, you know, I just recognized her, and you could even see in her, you know, a pathos underneath her life, you know, and how this experience really hit her, you know, it really hit her, but at the same time, she still believed in this competition, you know, with all of her heart, you know, and how fun it was. She kept talking about how fun it was. And I don't think that there was a disconnect there, that this competition was leading to a great amount of pain for people. So anyway, yeah, it was an extraordinary experience. I was very honored to be trusted with the role. I also think it, you know, had like an interesting thing to say about the women's movement in a way, without saying anything at all, because she was very free, you know, to have this career and to be sort of happily and gleefully sort of taken advantage of by the men around her, and then not spend time with her family. And then her daughter's gone, you know, and then what has my life been? Well, I better make it count. And so I'm going to put all of my energy behind this job.
Yeah. That's interesting what you said about Günther's ability to kind of tap into an Americanness, because I think, like, yeah, and that was so served by your performance, because I think I see you as somebody who really taps into this kind of American womanness. That's, you know, and kind of the part of the layers are the contradictions, and, you know, the hypocrisy. And you seemed, and where does that come from? that kind of, you know, kind of self-awareness in your performance, whatever. You're just, to me, you're really good at kind of really channeling that Americanness in a way that's very complex.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I think it's, like I said, I think it is, you know, about where I come from and feeling this acute responsibility, you know, to represent women in a complicated way and not in a stereotypical way, you know, especially Southern women. You know, Hollywood tends to want to cast a lot of people who are not from the South. A lot of times they'll cast people even who are from like Australia and England and stuff like that. And not to take away from them as actors, but there's an innate understanding that you have as a Southerner, growing up in that place. I just feel like I don't want to make fun of these characters the way a lot of, you know, Hollywood tropes have done in the past. And so I really try to dig as deep as I can and honor these characters, as, you know, even if they're unlikable or what they're doing is not something that any, you know, an audience would approve of. It doesn't matter. You know, it's not my job to judge a character. It's my job to flesh her out, you know?
Yeah. And you flesh them out so beautifully. And this is such an incredible performance, and thank you so much for it.
Thank you.
It's really, really quite amazing. Okay, I'm gonna move on, and just, I have to self-correct myself, speaking of getting people, not messing with people's identities. So Bastian Günther, Bastian is his first name. So audience, I'm sorry. And yeah, I will now get that correct. So yes, and refer to Bastian by his first name moving forward. So yeah, sorry about that, Bastian. So I'm going to move on to Carl. I have a question for you, kind of interesting question, I hope. This film, this might seem this is kind of a maybe a little odd question, but it reminded me, especially around your character, of Willy Wonka. There was an element of each of the characters, they're like kind of, you know, like the children in Willy Wonka, their kind of worst sides getting in their way in this competition. From the two guys that get into a fist fight that are just like egging everybody on throughout, and then they just kind of self-destruct. And then, you know, your character, of course, seems to have a very solid plan around his bag in his leg, and seems to have it figured out, but then doesn't. And you know, again, it just seemed like such an incredible acting exercise too. I'm assuming you guys were performing this endurance test and not actually standing with your hands on a car for 40 hours. So I don't know if you could just talk a little bit about that whole, you know, side of it as an acting exercise. And yeah, and even just this idea that, you know, some of the characters got kind of picked off, their, you know, their kind of worst attributes got in their way as they tried to win this thing.
Yeah, it was Jared Bankins and Bastian playing Pac was
Alex Biglane.
yes, and we just had a great. They got on my nerves, and so it was just fun to bounce with them and just play along because Pac was always constantly just doing that, and I just was amazed at how much Bastian caught me saying "shut up" to him. So it was just, yeah, it was just kind of happening. They got on my nerves, but at the same time, we were at the same time still acting, playing, and everything. So I love those guys. But that's mainly it. Just bouncing because Bastian, like he was saying before, he just turns the camera on, says action, and he just let it play these nice long takes, and so you just felt like you were. And we were out there for a while, you know.
So it wasn't entirely acting. It was pretty hot. You guys are out there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and you just get into the character. I know that my guy's he's single focus, and so it's nice that Bastian had me next to those two guys. For instance, you know, I mean, so it was like a nice contrast. They're young and everything like that, and playful and everything.
Yeah.
And whereas my guy's just a single-minded focus,
Yeah,
ornery guy.
Yeah, and they were great. And then also the kind of Willy Wonka thing was the guy with the headphones. Like that didn't work out either. That was drumming on the car. That
yeah, that was another thing where on the other side of the truck where Bastian, we would find stuff like improv stuff that ends up showing up later on the screen. I mean, the script was fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was so free, you know, just a really free set to be on, you know.
Yeah, I mean that comes through. The performances are so naturalistic.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are just also natural. It's really great.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, like for instance, one of my first lines, I think might have just happened when I'm at when I'm ordering the hamburger or whatever. He doesn't give me the root beer. I think that was just an improv right there. I'm not sure. But yeah, Bastian's great for that factor that you just can live up there.
Yeah. Thank you. Callie, my next question is for you. Your performance is incredible in the film, and you know, especially in the last 20 minutes. And I wanted to ask you about especially the job you have, which, I mean, speaking of naturalism, you know, was there what was involved in that? Any kind of preparation? Did you? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Bastian. Well, I got to learn how because I got to go out on the boat with some of the guys that did it, and they taught me how to do it. So I was doing it. So it was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, and that really comes through. That's why I was wondering, because it seems like you're doing it, and it's one of the coolest parts of the movie. And you look great doing it, by the way.
I honestly had a great time learning about it because it was such a new thing I'd never seen before, and it's very I don't know, it was really fun to just learn something totally new. Thing that I would have never imagined doing.
Yeah. Does that happen a lot in acting? Is that something?
No. That's why it was so fun. It was honestly one of my favorite days. It was like raining outside. We had the gator guy, like, with his like black, we had like a gator guy there to like make sure no gators were coming over. And it was just like, I don't know, for some reason it was one of my favorite days because it felt very experiential, and that's my favorite kind of thing. Favorite kind of job, favorite kind of acting is experiential stuff. So.
Yeah, and that's such a thread through this film, right? So it makes sense that would have been part of the process, and that's why it's so natural. Was the idea that was like a job with your family, or those were like family members, right? Or was it just like coworkers that you were on the job with?
I think coworkers. Bastian, you can answer what the intent behind it was, but I just kind of was like, see you later, Tom. See you later, Bill.
Right. Yeah. So it was just like coworkers. Yeah. I didn't know if that was like you were part of a family business or not, or that's something for us all to imagine, I guess. Yeah. And I guess same question for you as Carrie, like what was that process around knowing the end result, of the story and its impact on your character? Like, how did that weigh on you and your performance, or not weigh on you? And how did you kind of contend with that? Because it's a lot to have in your mind, as a character. I mean, this character is obviously going to be devastated, out of the, as a result of what transpires in her life. Her life is torn apart. So I just wondered, about your process around that, and how there was such a lightness also to your performance. And I was wondering how you were able to pull that and do that.
Good director. And me and Joe and Bastian and I talked a lot, and like you're saying, knowing like kind of the weight of the ending, we knew there had to be a lot of love there. And it's kind of what Carrie was saying. It's like, I just knew this woman because I'm also from the South too. And I was just like, I just got a really good sense of what she needed to be because it's really Kyle and it's Joe and Carrie's kind of like journey, but so I was kind of the supporting, factor for that. But that's how I think she was just the vessel to show love, like, the humanness. And so I knew that was really important to feel the pull of that, and also the pull of that, and not wring it out and make it really wet in any kind of way. Maybe I could have chosen better words, but like if you're cooking at the stove, you're just trying to feed your baby, so yeah, finding the balance, kind of like what Carrie was saying, between that you have to feel the love, and it has to kind of be underneath. It's kind of just all sort of existence. She goes crawfishing, she's got a baby, she's working all the time, she brings me Gatorade. That's kind of it.
Yeah, she's a busy woman, and that's such a good point about being a vessel for love, and then how that just really solidified, the audience's sense of empathy and sense of, what is lost.
Yeah.
When this young man takes his life, and just, I mean, that's so rooted in your performance, and thank you for that very much. All right, so two more. All right, so Donna, I'm gonna have a question for Donna next, who I kind of feel like is one of the like MVP utility players around the truck, and that like there was like so much, like definitely, like I really felt like you were in it, like it was really happening. And I just thought your performance was incredible in terms of just really establishing the, truthfulness and reality of the situation, and dispelling belief that this was really happening. And I just, wondered about, if there's anything you would share about that, and how you were able to just really nail that and just be so realistic.
Oh.
I didn't doubt for a minute that you were actually like, really doing this.
Oh, thank you. Well, we actually were there. We spent a lot of time on the truck.
Yeah.
You have the elements around you
Yeah.
at all times. You had the
Yeah.
rain, you had the bugs, you had the heat.
Yeah.
But what I really was thankful for is to be with such an incredible ensemble and cast. And Bastian was very smart in the audition process where he had people audition together. So not only did it work aesthetically, you had to trust these actors to really support one another, which we did. And I've never had such an incredible time with such an amazing, large number of cast members. We all genuinely really liked each other. Even with so much craziness going on with the weather. I mean, at one point we're underneath and it's storming. We had the mechanisms to create rain, but then the rain came and it was just something that came over all of us. The silence, and then I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, there's no way you couldn't be touched by standing on that truck for as long as we were, and we're singing, we're singing together, we're humming, and the hours are getting into us. So it was an incredible experience. I really enjoyed, and I'm still in touch with all of these people. I really enjoy working with all of them. It was amazing. So for me, it wasn't much of as a physical challenge as to some, because I enjoyed the process. I really did. I loved that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying about everybody getting along so well, that makes sense because there is so much humor.
Right.
Also, so.
Also, I think as far as the film, even though the documentary, when you see people who actually did this, the irony is that you're competing, but there's this sense of camaraderie, feeding off of other people's energy. And if they're falling, it's like, I've got to push myself up. This is what I want because this is my goal. This can change my life. So I think for us as a team on the truck, we also are pushing ourselves along, even though we know we're also in a competition with one another.
Yeah. And that's what you're saying now underscores another way that the film is so metaphorical and such a metaphor for kind of the contradictions of our society. And that kind of push and pull between the competitive and the competition and the cooperation, and which we're all kind of I think probably experiencing maybe a little bit more right now. So not to say this is definitely not saving the least for last. The last question is for the evil twin. Oh my God, what a performance! Incredible. So that's really, that's the first question I have for you is what was your thinking around playing each twin?
I went full on into it. I think I probably annoyed Bastian. It's funny because when I saw the cut, I had made so many crazy little notes about each twin so that between takes, it's this twin or that twin. And in my head, that really was going to matter in the cut. And I was like, people are not going to sit there and wait and figure out, when you were on, when to this guy. But, I just wanted it to feel as authentic as possible between the two of them. So, I kind of tried to have one be a little bit more of just a huge asshole. And the other one was a little bit more of a sociopath who enjoyed just fucking being crazy. So it was just fun to try to slip them in and out of different little moments and, basically just try to be the demise of Kyle, So
the sociopath was the first one and the more evil one was the one that was inside the trailer?
Well, they jump around a lot. So that's the thing. You won't know that because it's, but in my head I had every single one marked. So there's different things. There was a stain on one shirt. If you really watched, it'll be there. You can tell the difference.
All right.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
And what do you think, do you have any thoughts about where they were at the end after everything fell apart? Where your characters, were they?
Well, they did this professionally. So this is something they've always done. So they really got caught this time.
Yeah.
Oh, I think they're probably pissed off somewhere,
Just pissed off somewhere.
Trying to figure out their next scheme to get whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. Has this prompted you to think about doing any kind of Zoom twin, one man show performances or I don't know?
No. You guys are lucky there's only one of me, trust me. So trouble to have two.
Yeah, well, you did an amazing job, and it was,
you.
it was definitely maybe not surprising to everybody, but I think surprising to some. The reveal is definitely there, and it's pretty exciting. And yeah, you were really, both your characters were really pretty despicable, huh?
They were just doing what they had to do to get what they wanted. So
Yeah.
some intelligent and getting it done.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And that's the way you got to think about it when you're playing. Do you have any preference around playing characters like that versus
I just
types
think
of characters?
anything that's going to be complex with, some stuff to work with, just, you don't want to ever play anyone boring, and not anybody can really be boring, but, definitely the weird ones, the misunderstood ones are always a little more fun to play for me. So.
Yeah, well, you do it so well. Also, your hair there was a lot going on with your hair. The hair under the hat, it was really like there was just so much happening there.
Yeah.
Hair was seriously styled. It was pretty fascinating. Hairstyling. I was fascinated by that. All right, so I think just a couple of more questions for everybody, and anybody can just jump in that wants to answer. This is kind of free-for-all session. So this film has a lot on its mind. The script, the direction, the performances. There's a lot on this film's mind. There's a lot on everybody's mind right now. There's a lot going on. I'm just wondering if any of you are kind of looking at this story, this film, this amazing work of art that you were all so key in bringing to life differently in the pandemic, pre-election, the Black Lives Matter summer, all of it. Just if where we're at now as compared to when you made this film, if you just have what you think about how this film might connect up to what's going on right now in any way, or just any way that you might be thinking about it differently in this current moment. And that's for anybody and everybody.
Well, I think the film and the topics that the film addresses, where they are 2 years ago and they are of course still here right now, they are maybe amplified and louder and bigger because there's an election coming up and because of things that happened several months ago with George Floyd and the pandemic. We couldn't, predict the pandemic, but I think the script and the film covers the problems that are here right now and that are a big topic right before the election. With the pandemic, actually, what I observe or what I see is that we, as people, we try to hold on to something, and we don't want to accept that we have no control at some point, and that we can't just do the usual things that we, took for granted. And just this image of people being together at this truck and holding on to something, and they don't want to leave. I mean, as I said, we couldn't, think of a pandemic, and of course it's just in retrospect like a thought, but it's interesting how we as human beings, we want to keep control and we can't let go of things that we are just used to do. And another fact, of course, is that these kinds of competition wouldn't be there right now. I mean, this would be a super spreader event,
Or they'd be I guess it'd be masked hands on a hard body, yeah. Which is, yeah.
And I guess for me, I look at it, I've been asking friends a lot, especially on Zoom, what is the American dream and what does that mean? Looking outside, I had a discussion with my sister yesterday about us as consumers. We consume a lot. And then I'm looking at it myself, like I haven't bought anything except mask in the last 8 months and the things that I don't need. It's like you could have bought this truck or you could have won this truck, and that could have, the idea that it can change your life. I can drive my kids to school. Well, now kids are doing class on a computer. It just makes you question everything. And I'm still trying to figure out what that means, the American dream. And I think now is the time that everyone needs to ask that question. And what exactly is that question?
And I think, what hit me since is definitely, well, I just want to say Alex Big Lane. he was playing Pac. So I want to make shout out to Alex when you asked that question earlier. Felt bad. His name went out of my head. But just the economics of it all. I mean, you know, our business has been decimated. There's some things shooting, but not nearly as much, you know. And so many of our people are, you know, unemployed and everything. And just that's really, you know, it just really jumps out even more now, that economic desperation that this captures in the film. And that's a tip of the hat to Bastian. Yeah.
Anybody
Also,
else? Yeah.
the way the film has, you know, sort of personifies this truck, you know, the truck becomes a person, you know, and talks to him.
Right,
And,
right.
you know, how much we,
Yeah, so great.
how much we wrap up our identity in things, you know, and what, and that if we can just have this thing, then it will become us. We will become that, you know, it's a symbol of success. And in this world now where we're all wrapped up in identity, what's my identity? Who am I? A lot of times it does get a little bit confused with things that, with things, you know, your identity, you know, the house, the car, whatever it is, that image, you know, what that says about who you are and your value as a human being.
Even your career.
Huh? Yeah, even your career. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think the film does that so beautifully by actually, you know, literally having the truck become a person, you know, and especially like in the South, like, you know, men really do have a lot wrapped up in their vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very real thing. Their vehicles or their guns or something that makes them feel like Bastian was saying, that they have control, that they have, you know, something that's not going to ever change, you know. And of course we're in a world where everything changes all the time. So it's an illusion. It's, you know, it's a false refuge, these things.
Right.
Well, I think that, yeah, unless anybody else had anything else they wanted to add, I think that's actually a great, you know, note to finish on. Bastian, thank you so much. Carl, thank you so much. Carrie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Callie, thank you so much. Jesse, and thank you so much, Donna. Thank you so much, everybody. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think I thanked everybody. I needed to thank you guys. Rock. The film is incredible. We hope so many people, you know, see it. We are so proud to be showing it in the Houston Cinema Arts Festival. It is an incredible film for Texas, an incredible film for the world. You all are amazing in it. Bastian, you did an incredible job. You're an incredible director. I can't wait to see what you do next. I can't wait to see what all of y'all do next as actors. It's really a moving, powerful, impressive film. You should be so proud. And we're so grateful that you took the time to talk to us today. And we're so happy to share it with everybody that we can. And thank you so much. And Carrie, see what you do next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, bye.